Imagine waking up one day and realizing your body has been quietly negotiated by 1,000 small agreements you never consciously made. Before your eyes fully adjust to the light, your phone blooms with names that double as instructions. Your calendar isn't a tool, it's a confession. Your spine rehearses the posture of yes. You feel the familiar ritual of your day forming itself around other people's weather, adjusting your temperature so no one else shivers. You call it kindness, responsibility, loyalty. You call it being dependable. But beneath those noble words, there is a slower, quieter truth. You have been told that your worth is the distance you are willing to travel away from yourself. You scan the messages. Could you take this on? Do you have a minute? We need you on this. There is a private language carved into the ordinary. When you say no worries, your pulse accelerates. When you say sure thing, your chest contracts. You send the reassuring reply with that tone you've perfected. Light, elastic, breezy. The tone is a bridge, and you are the one lying across the river. You sip your coffee, tasting the bitterness behind your teeth, and there is a flicker of recognition you push away, the feeling that the day will require more of you than you have. Again. Here is the paradox no one taught you how to hold. To be kind to yourself, you may have to be cruel to someone's expectation. To stay faithful to who you are, you must betray the version of you that others prefer. What happens to a life that is lived as an apology to other people's stories? What do you call the habit of leaving your own truth at the door and labeling it generosity? How long can you keep telling yourself that love is measured in the number of times you agree to carry what is not yours? You remember the first time you disappointed someone and watched their face fall like a fragile shelf giving way. The horror of it etched something permanent inside you. Somewhere along the way, you concluded that keeping faces intact is your job. You learned the choreography of preemption. Anticipate the need, soften your edges, make yourself small enough to fit other people's contours. Isn't that what good people do? Does the word good taste like ash yet? If you stop propelling their comfort forward, would the world actually break? Or only the illusion that you must carry it? Imagine a courtroom where you have sentenced your own no to a life behind bars, and your yes wears the judge's robe. The evidence presented each morning is a blend of fear and memory. The penalty for refusal felt unbearable once, so you made a religion of compliance. The prayers are automatic. I don't want to let you down. The ritual is costly. Part of you disappears each time, like pieces of bread dropped in a forest you're trying to leave, but never can, because the birds have eaten the trail behind you. How much of you remains to return home? You have been borrowing approval at predatory interest rates. Every time you cash in a smile, a thank you, a sigh of relief from someone you saved, the debt compounds. This economy is invisible, but your body keeps the ledger. Your jaw, your gut, the heaviness behind your eyes, these are the late fees. If you are honest, resentment hums under your kindness like a generator in a burning house. You don't want to be this person. You also don't know how to stop. It is possible that people love you for the way you erase yourself. That sentence lands like a blade because it calls forth a question with teeth. If you stopped being useful in these specific ways, if you failed to absorb what others cannot hold, who would still stay? Who would recognize you if you allowed the mask to slip? Do they love you, or the role you inhabit on their stage? And harder still, do you love you, or only the applause that comes when you perform? Consider the strange arithmetic of your relationships. You keep trading your time for their peace, your presence for their certainty, your honesty for their comfort. It works until it doesn't. One day, someone you adore will ask something that costs you yourself. One day, the price will finally be too high to pay with a smile. When that day comes, will you have the courage to disappoint them, to watch the image of you dying in their eyes, while the truer you takes a breath for the first time? This is not a call to cruelty. It is an invitation to clarity. Not all disappointment is harm. Sometimes it is the mercy of stopping a lie. Sometimes it is the first soft tear in a fabric that never fit. Sometimes it is the only bridge back to a self that has been sending you signals from the edge of your own life, whispering, "Please do not leave me behind," in your effort to be loved. So here's the great question. Would you rather wound the illusion and save the relationship, or nourish the illusion and lose yourself? What if the bravest act is the gentle demolition of other people's ideas of you? What if the courage to disappoint is, in fact, the deepest form of loyalty to the relationship, to reality, to the person you must become? Hold that tension. Don't resolve it yet. Because the roots of this devotion to yes reach farther down than you think, down into ancient fears, unspoken family treaties, cultural scripts that dress themselves as virtue. If you're willing, we can descend together and find out why it feels so dangerous to stop pleasing and what has been pulling the strings all along. Descend with me. The devotion to yes is older than your name. It began before you understood words, in the small weather of your caregivers' faces. Attachment isn't a thesis, it's a thermostat. Your nervous system kept adjusting the dial to stay near warmth. A turned-away gaze felt like winter. A smile felt like spring. You learned the language of survival without ever speaking. Soften your voice, brighten your eyes, hurry to anticipate the storm in the room. By the time language arrived, the body had already voted. Keep them pleased, keep yourself safe. In the family you grew inside, there were treaties, none written, all binding. Don't upset Dad. Make sure Mom doesn't worry. Be the easy one. Sometimes you were drafted into the role of peacekeeper, the small diplomat soothing conflicts you didn't cause. Sometimes you learned that praise was the currency of affection, and the only way to stay held was to stay useful. Your yes was a life jacket, your no was a rip current. What could a child do but obey the ocean? Carl Jung would say you put on a persona, a mask crafted to win favorable responses from the tribe. The mask isn't a lie, it's a strategy, but every strategy edits reality. Jung also knew that whatever the persona excludes, the shadow inherits. Yours is a shadow full of unsaid no's, a storage unit of unexpressed limits. When the shadow isn't integrated, it leaks, through resentment, through sarcasm, through sudden fatigue at exactly the moment someone asks for just one more thing. You think you are broken for feeling this way, but your psychology is merely telling the truth your persona refuses to speak. Jean-Paul Sartre called it being for others, the way you become an object under the gaze of another. The look of the other fixes you, names you, and in that moment you risk living not as subject, but as someone else's idea. Or if you relocate your center of gravity into other people's eyes, authenticity becomes a form of disobedience. Sartre warned about bad faith, the self-lie we tell when we pretend we are just the role and not the actor. Are you playing the reliable one so thoroughly that you've forgotten you can leave the stage? Nietzsche, impatient with the anesthetic of the herd, would not be surprised at your exhaustion. The herd calls comfort good and deviation selfish. He dared you to become who you are, which sounds romantic until you realize it means disappointing the morality of the group that grants you shelter. The yes you wear has been sanctified as virtue by a culture that fears individuals who refuse to be domesticated by expectations. To become yourself is to risk becoming less edible to the herd. Arthur Schopenhauer told the story of porcupines in winter. They huddle for warmth, but their quills prick each other. When they separate to avoid pain, they freeze. You chose a third option: shave your quills. You became smooth enough to hold and be held, but you did it by whittling your edges. You called it kindness. It was also a quiet form of self-betrayal. When everyone is comfortable around you, check your skin. You may be bleeding invisibly. Aldous Huxley imagined a world numbed by soma, a chemical that smoothed every edge, sweetened every ache. You don't need a pill, you have approval. Praise is a fast-acting opiate. Likes are microdoses. The algorithm is a god that rewards your agreeable face and punishes your complexity. This is not an accident. An economy built on attention monetizes your likability. Corporations write scripts in which customer satisfaction is a moral imperative and team player is salvation. Schools grade obedience as if it were wisdom. You were trained to perform your palatability, graded handsomely for it, promoted when your boundaries didn't make trouble. Meanwhile, your biology is loyal to older laws. The human organism evolved in bands small enough that exile was death. Social rejection still registers in the brain like physical pain. The dorsal anterior cingulate cortex lights with hurt when you're excluded. Cortisol floods. The vagus nerve waits for cues of safety. Warm eye contact, prosody, presence. A frown from someone you depend on becomes a thunderclap to your nervous system. The fawn response, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, slides in. Appease, preempt, placate. Your yes is not always agreement. Sometimes it's anesthesia. Cognitive biases compound the trap. The spotlight effect convinces you that everyone notices your refusal as if under theater lights. Negativity bias makes a single disappointed sigh weigh more than 100 satisfied nods. Confirmation bias has you scanning every face for proof that boundaries are dangerous and, you guessed it, finding it. You treat your own needs as claims to be defended in court, and you assume the jury is hostile. Sociology gives this drama a set. Irving Goffman called life a stage, and you've mastered impression management, maintaining face to function in public. Politeness theory teaches you to protect others' face too, even at cost to your own. Gender scripts amplify it. Girls are raised to be agreeable, boys to be useful, both to be tireless. Marginalized bodies learn an extra calculus. Disappoint the wrong person, and the cost might be employment, safety, or belonging. Code switching isn't only linguistic, it's emotional. You adjust your boundaries to the room, aware that some rooms punish limits more than others. There is a metaphysical undertow as well. Viktor Frankl pointed to the hunger for meaning as the central human question. When your life's meaning is outsourced to external approval, you are held hostage by mercurial gods. Between stimulus and response, Frankl says, there is a space. You've been renting out that space to the reflex of yes, because suspense is uncomfortable and the fastest way to end another's disappointment is to agree. But what if that rented space is the only place where freedom lives? Look closely at the interior architecture. You build a cathedral to being a good person, and then installed a confessional where you apologize for every boundary. You take communion in the form of smiles and thanks. You tithe your time. The hymns are pleasant. The theology is cruel. The God you worship demands that you crucify your limits to prove your love. If you need to hear the evolutionary truth straight, your brain treats abandonment as an existential threat. But your culture also tells you that your worth equals your productivity and your goodness equals your compliance. You are a creature tuned to avoid exile, living inside a machine that rewards you for never refusing. Is it any wonder your no feels like treason? At this point, the problem looks less like a flaw in your character and more like a predictable outcome of history, biology, and training. You were built to belong, taught to appease, and paid to comply. You learned that love is approval, approval is survival, and therefore love equals survival. And yet, some secret chamber in you has stayed unconverted, a small, stubborn altar to something older than pleasing. It refuses your sermons. It does not pray to the crowd. It whispers a different liturgy. Let them be disappointed. Do not abandon yourself. But the whisper terrifies you because it threatens the whole architecture. Pull one brick from the cathedral and will the ceiling collapse? What if disappointing others cracks open not only relationships, but identities built upon them? What if you've never known who you were without the chorus of yes echoing behind you? The fear is not irrational. To stop appeasing is to deactivate an ancient alarm. It's also to confront the debts accrued in your body, the accumulated interest of every time you pretended consent. This is where we find the hidden problem in its pure form, a convergence of the organism's terror of exile, the psyche's persona protecting the shadow, the culture's adoration of compliance, and the economy's appetite for your agreeable labor. It is a net you swim in so long, you mistake it for water. And yet, something in you senses the cost. The next question is not abstract. It is a pulse under your tongue. What happens to a life built around preventing other people's disappointment? Where does the unspent no go? How does a culture of compulsory yes shape a person, a family, a workplace, a society? Hold your breath. We are about to surface into the outcomes you already feel but may not have named. The consequences announce themselves quietly. You drop another yes like a pebble and convince yourself the water barely rippled, but the lake has secret shores. That yes eats the hour you meant to use for yourself. It swallows the run, the call you owed your own heart, the unfinished book on the nightstand. A single pebble, then another, until the shoreline of your life is altered and you can't remember its original shape. Your body, which has always kept a more honest ledger than your mind, starts itemizing the cost. Allostatic load accumulates, the wear and tear of chronic stress. Your sleep frays at the edges. You wake as tired as you went to bed. The amygdala learns to flare at the premonition of a request. Your vagus nerve never quite believes you're safe. Digestion stutters. Your jaw has memorized clenching. This is the biology of appeasement, a system calibrated to avoid social winter, running hot with summer alarms all year. In the mind, a subtler architecture forms. The default mode network, the brain's narrator, repeats its old sermon. I am good if I am useful. I am safe if I am agreeable. You don't debate the voice. You live inside it. When a chance to say no arises, prediction circuits fire. Disapproval is coming, they warn, and the body reacts as if to flame. The relief of another yes acts like a sedative. Dopamine gives you a soft pat. Over time, approval becomes variable reinforcement, a slot machine that pays out social coins unpredictably. The unpredictability makes you pull the lever harder. You get hooked, not only on their smiles, but on ending the tension of refusal you never allowed to exist. There's a moral cost, too, the kind veterans of inner wars can name: moral injury. Every time you agree to something that violates your values, you carve a tiny notch in your sense of self-respect. The notches don't bleed, not at first, but your integrity becomes a flute with too many holes. The song of your life changes pitch until you no longer recognize it. Shame grows in that gap, the shame of being praised for a version of you who keeps betraying the one inside. Relationships are not spared. You think your yes keeps the peace, but peace is not the same as oxygen. Oxygen feeds a fire. Peace without truth suffocates it. You train people, increment by increment, to expect your availability as default. Foot in the door techniques require no malicious actor. They are baked into social choreography. Someone asks for a small favor, you oblige. They calibrate upward because humans normalize what is given. Now they know your capacity better than you do. When you finally hesitate, the dissonance between their expectation and your limit feels like aggression to them and treason to you. But notice the plot twist. You authored the algorithm that now oppresses you. Intimacy becomes brittle because it forms around a mask. You are loved, yes, but your persona receives that love while your core stands behind a glass wall, unrecognized. The greatest loneliness is being adored for a costume. Without friction, trust cannot mature. Disagreement is the place where two realities meet and decide whether they can hold each other. When you spare the other person your truth to protect the bond, you protect an illusion instead and foreclose the possibility of being seen. Eventually, resentment leaks through your niceness like sap from a tree. Passive aggression, sarcasm, sudden fatigue. Your shadow finds ways to speak. The relationship senses incoherence and grows anxious without knowing why. At work, the trap is lauded as virtue. You become the reliable mule the team loads until its knees buckle. Burnout is renamed stretch opportunity. Meanwhile, creativity, your ability to propose the weird, the difficult, the unapproved, atrophies. Innovation requires the courage to disappoint someone's current plan, someone's sunk cost, someone's ego. Groupthink thrives where dissent is framed as disloyalty. History has its file cabinet of preventable disasters in which someone saw the crack and swallowed their no. No need to dramatize. The pattern is plain. Teams that optimize for comfort decay. Teams that tolerate principled disappointment evolve. The consequences extend beyond meeting rooms. Families with a designated appeaser learn to outsource conflict management to that person. Children watch and learn. Boundaries are optional if they inconvenience love. They practice a magic trick, disappearing acts, until adulthood hands them a script they didn't write. Be pleasant, be useful, stay small. The pattern scales. In communities, we elevate smooth talkers who keep us undisturbed and scapegoat the ones who say, this isn't working. Institutions select for loyalty over honesty. Whistleblowers are met with frost. Truth gets delayed because no one wants to be the face that falls. Cognitive biases fortify the walls. The consistency principle binds you. Because you have been the dependable one, you fear the narrative costs of switching scripts. Sunk cost fallacy whispers that you've invested so much in being agreeable, you can't afford to pivot now. The spotlight effect convinces you that your boundary is under a Klieg light, when in fact most people are busy narrating their own show. Pluralistic ignorance keeps entire rooms silent. Everyone privately disagrees but assumes everyone else agrees, so no one speaks. And because your mind is efficient, confirmation bias pulls selectively from memory. Every time your boundary went badly is highlighted. Every time it was received well is archived in grayscale. There is a peculiar identity erosion. When you spend years recalibrating to other people's weather, you lose your feel for your own climate. Ask someone well-practiced, and yes, what do you want? And watch the panic flicker across their gaze. Desire becomes an unreliable instrument. You will name preferences that are safe to name. Whatever you want is fine, and call that kindness. Decision fatigue becomes a personality trait. The self, starved of choice, grows anemic. Eventually, apathy can masquerade as maturity. You tell yourself you are easygoing, when in truth you have misplaced your appetite for life. The body keeps negotiating with these compromises until it can't. Chronic inflammation visits as migraines, gut issues, autoimmune murmurs. The nervous system, stuck in a fawn-leaning physiology, cycles between collapse and agitation. You might choose numbness. Numbness has many professions: overwork, caretaking, perfectionism, substances, scrolling. Each offers a temporary ceasefire in the war between your truth and your performance. But numbness is not peace. It is an armistice that costs territory quietly: your curiosity, your humor, your daring. On the cultural level, we pay with mediocrity. When a society punishes disappointment, it also punishes the experiments that birth new forms. Art narrows, discourse flattens into slogans. Leaders become caretakers of comfort rather than architects of reality. We confuse dissent with disrespect and treat candor as a PR problem. The machine hums smoothly, and nothing alive can breathe inside it for long. Here's the strangest consequence. Your tenderness turns predatory against yourself. You use compassion as a weapon to keep you in line. Be nice, you tell yourself, while your own interior life is tied to a chair and gagged. You become your own censor, your own panopticon. No warden required. If this reads like an indictment, notice that it is also a diagnosis. You are optimized for belonging in a world that monetizes your compliance. The trap is elegant. Biology, psychology, and culture all point you toward yes and reward you until you cannot remember there was a choice. But there is a tremor moving through you now. A worry that is also a hope. If I start disappointing others, will I ruin everything or rescue something I have almost lost? Listen to that tremor. It is the early quake before a landslide that will reveal bedrock. A rebellion is possible, not a scream against the world, but a steady refusal to disappear. It will not look like what you've been taught courage looks like. It will look smaller and feel riskier. It will require new skills in the body, new stories in the mind, and new agreements in your life. The rebellion begins quieter than you think. It does not hoist a flag or announce new laws. It starts with a pause long enough to hear your own voice under the pressure. The first revolution is physiological. You notice the flood coming, the yes perched on your tongue like a reflex, and you do not let it jump. You lengthen your exhale. You feel your feet. You choose tension over self-erasure. The measure of courage is not decibels. It is duration. The few seconds you can stand in the heat after saying no. Train the body first, because the body is the site of the coup. Your nervous system has decades of rehearsal and appeasement. You cannot out-argue a reflex with logic alone. Start reteaching safety. Orient to the room. Let your eyes land on 3 stable points. Soften your jaw. Place your tongue on the roof of your mouth and relax it. The vagus nerve appreciates the signal. Inhale for 4, exhale for 6. Wiggle your toes inside your shoes. Feel your back held by the chair. These are not cute tricks. They are counter-programming. You are making it physically possible to endure another person's disappointment without translating it as danger. Adopt the most subversive belief of all. You are responsible for the clarity of your words and the kindness of your delivery. You are not responsible for managing another adult's emotions. This is not license for cruelty. It is permission for truth. A boundary is not a wall against love. It is the distance at which love can breathe without devouring you. When you refuse to carry what is not yours, you are not abandoning the relationship. You are refusing to abandon yourself inside it. Who benefits really when you agree with a mouth that says yes and a body that screams no? Practice microdoses of disappointment. Low stakes first. When the barista hears you say, "Actually, I asked for no syrup," you are not being difficult. You are rehearsing survival. When a colleague sends an invite titled "Quick Sync," you respond, "I'm not available. Please send your questions in writing," and then you let the silence hold. Give yourself an 8-second rule. You do not answer any new request for 8 seconds. Watch what your reflex tries to do. Explain, appease, joke, charm, and decline the impulse. There is a 90-second wave to most effective storms. Let the wave pass without trying to mop the ocean. Language matters. Prepare a small arsenal of clean sentences. "I can't, I'm at capacity." "That doesn't work for me." "I'm not available for that role anymore." "I'm willing to help in this way, but not that one." Resist the confessional urge to list your reasons like legal evidence. One sentence is enough. If pressed, repeat yourself without adding detail. It's called the broken record not because it is rude, but because it honors your consistency. Offer alternatives only if you genuinely want to. "I can't do Saturday, but I could do an hour next Tuesday." Your no can coexist with a benevolent imagination. Expect fallout and do not misinterpret it. When you stop supplying a drug, withdrawal symptoms appear. People wean off your endless yes with irritation, surprise, confusion. Treat their reaction as weather, real, passing, not in your control. Do not barter your boundary for immediate relief. That is the old economy. Give it time, 24 hours, 72 if needed, before reconsidering. If someone escalates, name the dynamic without accusation. "I hear that you're disappointed. My decision is still no." If they punish you with silence, remember, you are practicing the art of being misunderstood while remaining kind. That art will save your life. You will need scripts for special rooms. With family, renegotiate sacred roles gently, firmly. "I love you, and I'm not going to be your only crisis line anymore. I can talk on Sundays. If you need more support, I'll help you find it." With work, move from martyr to system builder. "I can't take this on personally. Let's build a process so this doesn't fall on one person each time." With friends, name reality before the ask arrives. "I'm changing how I do favors. If I say no, it's not about love, it's about energy." Let the words sound strange in your mouth. New language always does at first. Let me hand you a few stories. Names changed, truths intact. Maya, an ICU nurse with a calendar hemorrhaging double shifts, began with one rebellion. "I don't switch into nights last minute." She thought colleagues would excommunicate her. Some did grumble. But a month in, her migraines receded, her laughter returned, and 2 other nurses asked how she did it. Ken, a mid-level manager known for answering emails at midnight, said a midnight auto-reply, "I work 8 to 6. Messages sent after hours will be read tomorrow." His team adjusted within 2 weeks. Their deliverables did not suffer. Ken's creativity doubled. Lena, the eldest daughter who translated adulthood for her mother, told a difficult truth. "I won't cancel my plans to answer non-urgent calls. If it's urgent, text 911. The first month felt like treason. The second month, their conversations grew richer because they were no longer saturated with obligation. Each story shares a spine, the willingness to tolerate initial discomfort for a more honest shape of love. This is also shadow work by another name. Jung did not mean you must exercise your agreeable parts. He meant you must include the exiled ones. Invite your inner no to the table and ask it what it protects. You will discover it is not a monster, but a sentry. Thank your fawn response for keeping you safe when you were small. Retire it from universal governance. In internal family systems language, you negotiate with parts. Appeaser, I see you. When I say no now, I'm not banishing you. I'm relieving you. Integration is kinder than exile. Your shadow's no is not the enemy of your goodness. It is the guardian of your integrity. Nietzsche's challenge to become who you are makes practical sense here. Creation demands refusal. Miles Davis electrified his sound and disappointed purists. Bob Dylan went electric and endured booze. Virginia Woolf demanded a room of her own and disappointed the domestic ideal. None of them were reckless with people. They were reckless with expectations. Your life may not require art that disrupts genres, but it does require a genre shift in how you belong. Are you willing to disappoint the audience you have to become the author you need? Structure your rebellion so it can survive you. Choose 3 commitments that are worth your yes this season. Everything else is a default. No, unless it aligns with those commitments. Derek Sivers calls it the hell yes or no rule. Consider it triage for your attention. Create a cooling off clause. I don't commit on the spot. I'll let you know tomorrow. Schedule unavailability as if it were an appointment with your future. Wednesday evenings are mine is a sentence that can change a life. Build a small circle of people whose disappointment matters, and let the world beyond that circle be whether you don't try to control. A necessary side note for those moving through precarious rooms. Sometimes safety is not theoretical. If your livelihood, housing, or bodily safety depends on the approval of a volatile person or institution, strategy matters. Practice your no in safer spaces first. Stitch an exit ramp rather than blow the bridge. Courage is not the same as self-endangerment. Even then, keep a small, sacred corner that belongs to you entirely. Secrecy is not ideal, but sometimes it is the incubator for later truth. Finally, ritualize your reclamation. For 30 days, write 1 sentence each night. Today I disappointed X by doing Y, and I remained kind. Track what you saved: an hour, a headache, a resentment. Feel the arithmetic swing back toward you. When guilt arrives, name it what it is: the echo of old training, not a verdict. When shame arrives, check if it belongs to you or to a rule you never agreed to. And when relief arrives, because it will, do not apologize for it. Relief is the sound of your life, releasing its held breath. This is the rebellion, not pyrotechnics, but precision. The courage to let illusions shatter so that relationships can be rebuilt on bedrock. The courage to be the villain in someone's story for a chapter so that you can remain the protagonist of your own. The courage to treat your no as a form of love. Are you ready to hear what becomes possible on the other side of this practice? On the other side of this practice, a different horizon appears. It isn't a technique or a trick. It's a quiet rearrangement of reality. You learn a truth so simple, it feels almost impolite. You were never appointed the guardian of other people's emotions. You were not hired by the universe to keep every room at a perfect temperature. The sky holds storms and sunsets without asking your permission. What if the courage to disappoint others is the courage to let the weather be weather? Here is the revelation that clicks the rest into place. You do not disappoint people. You disappoint their expectations. Those are not the same. You can love a person deeply while refusing the role their story assigns you. If a bond cannot survive the small rupture of an honest no, it wasn't a bond. It was a hostage situation with flowers. What if disappointment is not a breach but a bridge? The place where 2 honest worlds meet and decide if they can continue together? Language hides a map. To disappoint means to remove an appointment. You unappoint yourself from the role you never consented to play. In the same motion, you appoint yourself to your life. And courage, remember its root, comes from core, the heart. Courage is not volume, it is fidelity. It is the heart speaking its alignment even when the room longs for a different note. Your no is a syllable of that alignment. It is not anger, it is architecture, the contour that gives your yes a home. The deepest shift is theological in scale. You retire from the God job. You stop trying to control how others feel about you and relinquish the fantasy that you can prevent their pain. The moment you set the idol down, you become human again, finite, honest, available to love without agenda. You respect other adults enough to let them have their reactions without managing them. You trust reality to do some of the teaching. Sartre's gaze loosens its grip. You return to subjecthood. You stop living in other people's eyes and begin to look from your own. Meaning enters differently now. Frankel's space between stimulus and response becomes a sanctuary rather than a hallway you sprint through. You wait there. You listen. You choose. Mortality stands in the doorway as a steady friend, not a threat. Time is not an enemy you must fill with usefulness to earn your place. Time is a field where your attention is the only crop that matters. If death is your advisor, trivial yeses embarrass themselves. What, in the face of a finite life, deserves your days? You discover a more ancient belonging. Fitting in is conditional. Belonging is existential. The river accepts your reflection whether or not your neighbors do. Nietzsche's amor fati stops sounding like bravado and starts sounding like tenderness. Love your fate, which includes the prickle of someone's displeasure, the silence after a refusal, the awkward recalibrations of honest relationships. You stop demanding immunity from discomfort as the price of being good. You become capable of joy that is not contingent on applause. Inside, a union takes place. Jung's shadow comes home, not with a roar, but with a handshake. The part of you that guards the boundary and the part that loves to give sit at the same table. They learn to coordinate. Fierceness stops dressing as resentment. Compassion stops dressing as compliance. You carry both, a lion and a lamb that no longer argue about who gets the body. The result is gentleness with edges, kindness that does not promise what it cannot deliver. The world doesn't transform into a utopia when you do this. It gives you something better, clarity. You find that disappointment does not end connection. It purifies it. The grandmother who says, "I can't take the kids this weekend," is met with a sigh and then a real conversation about shared load. The team lead who says, "We won't hit that date," receives a glare and then resources are redistributed sanely. The partner who says, "I need solitude tonight," meets the initial wince and then, over time, you both stop being strangers in the same house. The sky does not fall. It becomes visible. Your worth, once pegged to usefulness, like a stock price to a volatile market, decouples. Something unspectacular and radical happens. You feel lovable when you are of no use at all. Sitting on the floor doing nothing begins to count as something. Your presence is no longer a vending machine of favors. It is a living thing. Good person was the old credential. True person replaces it. And truth has a slower intelligence. It chooses deliberately. It refuses gently. It keeps its promises because it makes fewer of them, and each is chosen with care. Another paradox emerges that sets you free. By allowing others to be disappointed, you give them the chance to become who they are too. When you stop cushioning every fall, people meet their own legs. When you stop absorbing every discomfort, your relationships grow adult bones. You model a kind of love that does not require self-betrayal on either side. The room learns a new rhythm: honesty then repair, boundary then belonging, friction then warmth. You step out of the economy of sacrifice and into the ecology of truth. So make it ceremonial. Write the resignation letter you've avoided. I resign from the position of manager of other people's expectations. I accept the role of steward of my life. Sign it with the name you use when you talk to yourself tenderly. Put it where you can see it. Each morning ask, whom do I serve? My fear of being disliked, or the life within me that knows? At night ask, did I tell the truth today without abandoning kindness? These are small liturgies. They tilt the axis of a life. And when guilt arrives, and it will, receive it like weather. Let it pass through. Ask it its name. Often it will say, I am the echo of a rule you no longer need. When shame snarls, verify its contract. Does it belong to you or to a script that rewarded self-erasure? When relief arrives, and it will, do not mistrust it. Relief is not selfishness. It is a compass pointing home. The ultimate truth is simple enough to fit in your palm. The only person you must not betray to keep love is the person whose life you are living. Everyone else is a guest, even the ones you adore. You are the host. Set the table in a way you can live with. Let people bring what they can bring. Some will leave when the food changes. Bless them. The ones who stay will taste you for the first time. They will not adore a costume, they will recognize a person. Tomorrow the request will arrive, as it always does. Your tongue will reach for yes. You will pause. You will feel your feet. You will hear the animal inside your ribs lift its head. You will say, I can't, or not this time, or here's what I can do. Heat will rise in your face. The room will not save you. It does not need to. Outside, some indifferent miracle will continue, the light moving across a wall, a bird arguing with the morning. Inside, a door will open that no one else can see. It is the one you have been looking for. Step through. Carry your life with both hands. Let those who must be disappointed, and let those who can love you for real draw nearer. The world will not end. It will begin precisely where you refuse to end yourself.